Well, good afternoon and welcome to the pre-planning meeting for the Planning Commission for the City of Frederick. On our agenda today, the first thing is a continuance for the Wynn Pennytel property annexation.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This is Gabrielle with the Planning Department. They are requesting a continuance this time till the April 12th Planning Commission hearing. There really has not been much movement. They continue to talk with the county and operations folks at that level, dealing with continuation of the road, but there has not been anything formally resubmitted at this point. Commissioner Nicholas did ask for the potential maybe for another workshop before we get to a hearing, because there has been this gap, and I think the information that will be provided for the hearing will be fairly substantively different. It'll be new information. It's not just a clarification of something. So I have made the applicant aware that that was a request, and I think it's prudent on everybody's behalf to take the time to do that. So we'll continue to work with them over the next couple of weeks. If it were an April hearing, we would want to do that workshop in March at that point. So we will continue to work through it.
Okay, great. And I actually should have taken a roll call, even though we technically do not need a quorum, but let's take a roll call anyway. We'll start with Commissioner Manalis.
Commissioner Manalis present.
Commissioner Sparati.
Commissioner Sparati present.
Commissioner Strawson.
Commissioner Strawson present. Is
Alderman
this when I
Russ.
ask a question, or do I wait until you finish the roll call?
Wait until you finish the roll call. Sorry, I should have done this first. And Alderman Russell.
Alderman Russell present.
But now that you said that, now we'll just have to go around and ask questions again. So with that, Commissioner Manalis. Any questions on the continuance?
Sorry. No, I do not have any questions. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Sparati.
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Strawson.
So I was only curious about, is there a limit to the number of times they can continue something, or a time limit for the continuances? At what point do we stop continuing and just have them presented as a whole new piece of thing again, whatever we call it?
Sure. There is not anything in the rules of procedure or in the LMC specific. It talks about the time frame from, and not even specifics, but from the time you make your recommendation to the mayor and board and the movement of the project that way. But there isn't a specific limitation. I would note that the public notice requirements, if you've been continued for 90 days from your initial hearing, there are components of the public notice requirements that need to be redone. You know, I would anticipate with this application that while it will be a continuance, that if and when we get to the point when it's moving forward, that, you know, we'll have to couch it as a whole new presentation of the application. Okay. In terms of the staff report, I would not anticipate us just kind of jumping in and being like, oh, remember, you know, 6 months ago, this is where we were. I think that the changes and the issues that have been worked through in this time period will warrant, you know, really a comprehensive new evaluation.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's all I have.
And Alderman Russell. And actually, I was just going to ask a follow-up question to that. So even with that, there's still only going to be one more hearing, correct?
Correct. I don't know that anything, you know, if we got to that one, the hearing, and there was something that you all went, oh, well, this is all new information and I don't know, or I need more, or it's not complete. Oh. I don't think anything would prevent you from continuing it again at that point. But
that I always forget this. I keep thinking annexations have 2 hearings. So that was why I asked that question. I withdraw the question. All right, I think that's good. I think that's good though. And nobody else seems like they want to ask anything more. So we will go on to item B on our agenda, which is the architectural review for Kellerton planned neighborhood development.
Hey, good afternoon, Madam Chair, everyone. That one is mine. I really do not have a lot to share or update. The applicant has since provided a formal modification letter for the subtle modification for square windows on 2 of the elevations, and furthermore facing packages on that model. I believe the farmhouse and manor. I do apologize if I cut out. My internet is a little spotty right now, so I'm
Well, you did just cut
repeat
out.
anything,
Oh,
but yeah, no, once again, yeah, hey, I'm here and there. But yes, no, not a lot to add. I would like to take the opportunity to kind of take a bit of accountability. We had one minor staff level revision after the initial publication of the staff report. I had neglected to include the language for the modification. So anyone that has seen online, there's been a revision that has just simply for protocol been added for the modification request. But just procedural things at this point, and I can answer any questions if there are any.
okay, thank you. Charles, we will do a roll call for questions then. Commissioner Manalis.
Commissioner Manalis, I was just curious about the terminology of primary windows versus secondary windows. I noticed that in regards to the modifications, there was language that suggested that that would be okay for the requirements not to be so stringent because it was secondary windows, and I didn't understand what the difference between was primary and secondary.
Sure, I do not believe that is well defined in the code, but what we take it from an interpretation is the primary window would be sunlight and egress ingress purposes for building safety code requires a certain amount of square footage per window. I think it's I believe 5 points ingress for safety aspect. But as far this modification request and what's seen on this Hawthorne, those square windows have been described and expressed as more architectural features to bring balance.
Right.
I believe one specific window is just a dormer off of the attic that would not lead to any usable room, just attic space or things like that. So make things look nice and balanced.
Okay. My second question was, were there any NAC comments?
So for these architectural reviews, these are not under LMC protocol presented
Okay.
at the NAC. So these will be our public hearings now.
Okay. And my last question was, I don't have a problem with I don't have a problem with the modification for waterboarding. Oh, wait a minute. No, I have a problem with waterboarding. I do have a problem with waterboarding, but I don't have a problem with water tables. Waterboarding is unacceptable. Anyway, moving on. I was just curious about the language. I was like, so as long as there's no misunderstanding in the language that there is going to be some type of landscaping with the water table, because I think it said the modification request said something to the effect, I'm trying to find it now. Well, I lost my page, but it basically said a modification. Oh, here it is. I think it is. Oh, in lieu of, that was the word that stood out to me, in lieu of substantial landscaping. So I just was a little concerned that that might be misinterpreted as no landscaping in terms of if you have the water table, but then that would be it. So I was just wondering about that piece, the word in lieu of.
Yes, ma'am. Sure. I lost you for a few seconds there, but I think I received all of that. This not a formal modification request. This goes back to ultimately, once again, those elements that are required by the PND standards of Kellerton. But the in lieu of, first and foremost, that water table is really a wrapping feature. So this would be on the side elevations of the house. And yes, to answer your questions, there will, of course, be landscaping on front elevation, but this is that desired wrapping effect for the side of the house. And the thought process there is that you've got your siding, no issues with the siding for code or building safety, nothing like that. But we've got our small shrubs or anything that would be compliant, but maybe the homeowner would prefer something, just to wrap that architectural feature around the water table with the stone feature. So once again, it's really appropriate at the time of the permit. And hopefully I've just expressed everything
Yes.
without losing internet connection. So
Thank you very much. That was helpful.
yes, ma'am. Hope it helps.
Okay, Commissioner Sparati.
Commissioner Sprouty, no questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Strassen.
Commissioner Strassen, so Charles, I wasn't clear on what you were saying regarding the recent revision. So is there something that's not in what I got in my packet that I have to go find?
I do not believe so. I take accountability. I sent out to the printer to make sure that the language for the modification request that is read on record. So
Okay.
really, that would simply be the last page for the modification stating for record and having everything on paper.
Okay, so it's in the packet.
Yes, ma'am. I believe so.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Alderman Russell.
No, thank you.
Okay, so I just wanted to be clear, Charles, your answer to Commissioner Manalis basically was yes, right? So in lieu of means they can do that water table instead of landscaping
Yes, on the
side. Yeah, okay, yeah.
And that
Right.
is also not to say there will be zero planting or anything, but yes, instead of the focal
Right.
point will be the water table. Yes.
Right, okay, I thought so. In the staff report itself, we typically do a motion and a vote on a modification before we do the approval. So I will say I believe we need to put the modification first. And I would just like to hear from Gabrielle on an item such as this. Just could you confirm whether the modification must go first?
Thank you. Yes, generally modifications are voted on before the plan is approved because that is
Part of the vote.
foundational. So, yeah, if you don't approve the modification, you don't approve the plan. You can't approve the plan but not approve the modification because they're all inherently associated. So, right, the modification would be prior to voting on the plan itself, that you're voting, you're acknowledging the deviation from the requirement, and then you're approving the plan with that deviation, basically.
Okay, I thought so, but thank you for confirming that. All right, any other comments or questions? Looking at everybody's eyes, this is great, love to see everybody. So we're good with that item. Thank you, Charles.
Thank you all. Have a good weekend.
You too. That takes us on to our capital improvements program.
Thank you, Gabrielle. Again, Planning Department. I'm just trying to scroll to where. It's the one thing about being digital, lots of scrolling these days. So with the staff report for the CIP, we have expanded a little bit by addressing, and I had sent an email out after the workshop, addressing the Sustainability Committee's recommendation that was included in your packet for the workshop, but we didn't discuss it. I did add to the staff report the Sustainability Initiative's specific project number that falls under the General Fund Facilities items. And they have submitted their recommendation letter that will go to the mayor and board as well. But, you know, the Planning Commission has very much been involved in a lot of sustainability issues. And as we see, I think those initiatives get a desire to work them more into our land use regulations. I think it's important that this body looks at that as well. So we did include that. My dog is going to bark. I'm sorry. The other thing I just wanted to point your attention to was on the recommendations. We did expand item number 5, that the CIP for 2020-2027 be provided for that 5th Street extension as well as the Pine and Church.
That does not sound like a wiener dog to me.
Gabrielle, before you wrap up and we ask questions, could you just confirm? So what I see in the recommendations are the same 5 items that we had in last year's. And as you said, you added that 1 item with the extension of 5th to Church, which is number 5. Yet there are still other items that you have in the staff report that you are recommending that the commission considered, but they are not part of your staff recommendation write-up or any of these 6 items, as in any of these 6 items in the back.
So there were some items, I think, under roadside infrastructure where we kind of provided updates, as well as like under the park section that now has received funding for the RFP or for the master plan to be developed. So some projects that were discussed in the body of the report aren't incorporated as specific recommendations. Some of them, because as I said, with like the parks item, it is in the works. So it was more to provide an update on items we had discussed previously.
Sorry, so doesn't mean that you recommend them to be included then in our letter? You're just giving updates.
Right, exactly.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for jumping in there. I just thought we needed a little clarification on that. So I will take a roll call for questions then. Commissioner Manalas.
Commissioner Manalas, just one quick comment or question maybe, or suggestion, I don't know. Is it possible that we can use a bulleted format that we used the last time? Or are we using this numerical layout as a means to say what is like the number 1 priority, number 2, number 3, number 4, whatever? So I was just curious about that.
I think
that was my only comment.
If you have items that you find to be a priority over one another, I think that would be something you would want to articulate. You know, if as a commission, this board feels that the 5th Street, I'm just picking on one of them, the 5th Street is paramount and it is number 1, I would definitely articulate that. If we don't feel that it is your recommendation. If we don't feel like there's anything kind of value laden and they're all good and we want to see them all move forward, then we can express that in the contents of the letter and use more of a bullet point as opposed to a numerical.
Okay, and that was just my question, why we transitioned from the bullet point to the numeric. Okay, that's fine. Thank you. That was my only comment.
Okay. Commissioner Sparati.
No questions or comments. Thank you.
Commissioner Strawson.
Commissioner Strawson, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Alderman Russell.
Thank you, Commissioner Manalas, for bringing that up. Now I'm recalling the conversation that we had about one before the other. So I think the bulleted format allows us to include all the things we are supporting without getting into what's more important than the other thing. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. And I don't have any further questions on this. Gabrielle, it looks like you're going to say something. We don't hear you. You look cute though.
Thanks.
Okay.
I smile and bob my head. That's all I'm really doing anyway. I was just going to note that Jenny Willoughby is here with us. If anybody had questions on the sustainability item, since we didn't kind of discuss it in more detail, but just wanted to note that.
And if I may, thank you for reminding me. The BPAC, the Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee, just met just a couple of days ago, I think, and we'll be formulating a letter. So it's in line with all this, but it won't be in time for this recommendation.
Okay. Thank you, and thank you for joining us, Jenny. All right. We are moving right along. We're on item number D, which is actually going to be the first of 2 required public hearings as its master plan. And this one is for the Tuscarora Creek Planned Neighborhood Development.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's Sherry. nothing really new to add. There is a typo or a couple of words that were omitted in the staff report where I added some language discussing the, where we had discussed the townhouses and how much of the backyard they would be taking up. We had discussed that at the workshop. So I added a sentence in there that was supposed to say that the townhouses will not be encompassing the entire rear yard. But the word encompassing was left out. So we'll fix that and make sure that it's correct at the time of the hearing. But that was really all that I had. I didn't have anything else that I changed.
Okay, let's take a roll call for questions then. Commissioner Manalis.
Sorry, Commissioner Nellis, I'm going to skip my turn right now. I'm trying to find the document. Sorry.
Okay, we will come back to you. Commissioner Sparati,
No questions or comments. Thank you.
Commissioner Strassen,
I don't have any questions either. Thank you.
Alderman Russell,
Alderman Russell, I'm good, thank you.
and Sherry, could you just tell me where that sentence is and what section so I can be laser-like focused on it?
Yes, it is. Let me see. Under staff comments, and it's on page 5.
I see it. It says at the PC workshop.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Just wanted to. All right.
So I'll make sure for our records that it's corrected.
Will not encompass the entire, correct. Both of those words, or not be encompassing. Okay, thank you. Let me go back to Commissioner Manalis.
I did have just one question, but it was more out of curiosity about why sometimes applicants may request or engage in, I guess, in various revisions. I was just curious about why, because now this is another revision, because you said on page 2, on top of page 2, has been revised several times, and the most recent revision occurring in 2017. And then now it says on page 1 that they're requesting approval for revision. So I was just curious, is that like a standard thing that typically happens, or that was my only question?
It can be. I mean, this project was approved, I think the master plan goes back to 98. So, you know, when you're looking at several years that it's been drawn out and the market goes up and down, and you have different builders who come in and want to change things, and the market dictates some of those changes. So yeah, something like this that's been going on for a while, you will see numerous revisions sometimes. You're welcome.
Okay, I can see everybody. So any other questions or comments? All right, Sherry, I think we're good on this one. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so now we go on to item E, and this is a text amendment for mixed use conditional uses.
Thank you, Gabrielle. Once again, Planning Department, nothing has changed with the draft ordinance, and the staff report pretty much reflects what we saw in your workshop summary. This is the amendment to section 310 to allow for mixed use conditional uses to transfer with the property owner, that they actually run with the property itself and the conditions established by the Planning Commission. And this is consistent with how we handle conditional uses that are approved by the Zoning Board of Appeals. So it is consistent with our code and implements policies of our comprehensive plan, and happy to answer any questions.
Okay, well, to that, we will take a roll call. Commissioner Manalis.
Thank you. No questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Sparati.
No questions. Thank you.
Commissioner Strassen.
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
And Alderman Russell.
Nope, thank you.
Okay, all right. I think we're good for that one. Thank you, Gabrielle. So we have one more item, and over an inch thick. Lisa, you outdid yourself. So this is the zoning map amendment for 1730 North Market Street.
Hi, good afternoon, Lisa Mrazek Murphy. This is the Historic Preservation Commission's application for the zoning map amendment. Nothing substantially has changed in the application. Nothing has changed in the application. In the staff report, I've expanded upon how the property meets the criteria. As a reminder, it meets the criteria for architecture, for association with events that have contributed to the broad patterns of history, and for the association with the architect, a master, Joseph Evans Sperry. So I've expanded upon that in the staff report. It very strongly meets all those three criteria. It also has high levels of integrity. In your packet, you now have the final the formal resolution from the Historic Preservation Commission with their recommendation. And you also have the appraisal report that the property owner's representative discussed at the workshop. You also have copies of the various plans that I had presented in the PowerPoint, and hopefully that with the written explanation in the staff report clarifies that. And then you also have some correspondence testimony that was received from the property owner as well as their statement of opposition. Thank you.
Okay, and thank you. We will take a roll call. Commissioner Manalis.
Commissioner Ellis. Hi, Lisa. I just had one quick question. It was just really more of a confirmation. So the opposition, I guess, in terms of property value and so forth, none of that has any, I guess, bearings on this in particular. We're just more focused on, you know, the criteria and making that decision and so forth. But the other stuff is not in scope, is the word that I'm trying to use. It's not in scope.
Essentially, so the LMC sets forth the criteria that the Planning Commission is to consider. They're supposed to take into consideration the Historic Preservation Commission's findings with regard to the designation criteria, as well as consistency with the comprehensive plan, as any other related planning issues. So not specifically that doesn't fall within in the criteria that the Planning Commission is directed to consider.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Sparati.
Thank you, Commissioner Manalis, for asking that question, because I've been wondering that myself. So nope, I'm good. No questions.
Commissioner Strawson.
Commissioner Strawson, so at the workshop, we had a lot of discussion about the front piece of the property that's next to Market Street and why it was transferred ownership. Can't hear me?
Yes.
It says I'm unmuted.
No, it's not you. It was background noise, so we couldn't hear you.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Okay.
It's
anyway,
a connection.
Yeah. Was there anything, so we were asking why it was transferred, you know, to the other owner, and then why it's going to be transferred back after the development is finished. Was there anything about that to add to the staff report, or anything that we really need to know about that?
I did include a copy of the agreement between the property owners in the backup.
Okay.
Why they chose to go about that is, and how the land is being transferred back and forth. Again, I don't think it's relevant to
Okay.
the criteria that the Planning Commission is charged with considering. It sort of certainly creates some sort of kind of, I guess, logistical issues for the owners themselves, but that's not related to the historic preservation overlay application necessarily. And I think one thing to note, in the LMC, both the Historic Preservation Commission and Planning Commission are given pretty narrow scopes of what to consider.
Mm-hmm.
It's really when it gets to mayor and board, it becomes more of a policy decision. And at the point, that's sort of when, you know, the board has more discretion to, you know, take those types of things into account than the Planning Commission, Historic Preservation are due.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Alderman Russell.
Alderman Russell, I'll just make a comment that I was looking through some old photographs and found one of my maternal grandfather, Olin de Gruyter, who apparently was an Odd Fellow back in the day. So I'll scan it and send it to you. It's an old black and white with some of his buddies, but other than that, I have no comments.
Yeah, very neat. Thanks.
Thank you. And I do appreciate the conversation. Well, one, the question and the conversation on what our scope is like. And it's good that we keep reminding ourselves what that is, because that we are an objective commission. Having said that, I do have a related question to what Commissioner Strawson asked. Did the owners, and I believe that's Canterbury Station LLC, of parcel 204, by any chance, did we receive a letter or any testimony from them?
We did not receive anything. I did receive a call and I sent them some information, but they did not send anything. It was just they were looking for where they could find the information. They did not submit anything.
Okay. Well, I think that is interesting information. So, all right. I don't have any further questions then. Anyone else? Okay. Well, that takes us to the end of our agenda. So we will say that the meeting is adjourned then. Everybody have a good weekend. Happy Super Bowl Sunday, and we'll see you on Monday.
Have a great weekend.
Bye.